Or I'm gonna try something where I just kind of talk off the cuff and maybe I can get some thoughts out and I'll put it behind a video of myself drawing and we'll see if that does anything. So I'm sitting here thinking about, well, I mean, while I draw, like I'm always thinking. That's kind of why I like to play music or listen to podcasts, because one thing that inevitably happens while I work is the dark thoughts start coming in. And those are like the thoughts of, why am I doing this? What's the point? On other days, it's like political crap. Hey, the world's about to fucking go off the rails or whatever. And today, it's kind of this annoyance about my obscurity as a creator. It's like, it's this sort of thing that I live with, and that's fine. I generally am okay with it. It doesn't really get to me a lot. But, there's catalysts to things. I'm someone with, mental health issues, anxiety, and whatnot from a lifetime of struggle and trauma and things as a child. So, I deal with crap. um, but this thought it's kind of the catalyst was the one of the webcomic hosts that I use is kind of a smaller upstart, and it's run by like 5 or 6 people, and so it's not as efficient as something like a webtoon or a tapas. So about 2 weeks ago, I uploaded a number of chapters, and they've yet to show up on the thing, on the platform. And when I brought it up, I was told, by like another creator to, just chill, man. There's only a few people on there. Try giving them some credit. There's only a few people running the thing, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. It's also been, like 12 days since I uploaded my chapters, and they've yet to show up. And as much as I kind of annoyed by that, for some reason, this is where the obscurity thing comes in. That platform is where I get the most traffic. I have the most views on that platform because it's kind of new. I'm in the ground floor of that. So, I want to kind of keep a good standing with those guys, and I don't want to pull my book off of off of uh, off of their platform. Sorry, I'm drawing, so sometimes my brain might, I might lose my train of thought or something. But it, so it's kind of annoying, and then that leads to this sort of thoughts that are like, you're working on this book that is, it's not a fun book. So I can see where it wouldn't be for everyone, but it's a very personal book to me, so I'm working on it. Um, the subject matter's dark. The the I don't know, the theme is pretty serious. It's kind of religiously themed. It doesn't have. I mean, it's a fantasy book, but it's got elves and dragons, and it has action and things like that. But it's also, I would call it a drama before I'd call it an action fantasy. I'd call it like a fantasy drama, which it's fine for some people. So it's not going to have the widest appeal to begin with. So this book is languishing in obscurity on the platforms. I got like maybe 5 subscribers total, just because Webtoon is very specific to like these sort of anime kids, and Tapas is a lot better as far as diversity when it comes to the types of things. It's just, I don't know. Webtoon is definitely bigger than Tapas, so there's less people reading on Tapas. And no matter how much I share and push my book, it seems like no one wants to check it out. And that's cool. That I get that. You see me in a comic shop, I'm pretty dismissive of the stuff in front of me. If the art isn't grabbing me within like 2 seconds, the book's back on the shelf. I read mostly digital, so the me going to a comic shop is rare in and of itself. So if I go in there, it's usually just looking to see what's new that I haven't heard of. So I'm probably only going to buy like one floppy, and you know, so that's like that's like one of those things where I'm only going to buy like one floppy, so I'm going to be pretty choosy about the one I buy, unless it's someone I know and I'm very specifically looking for their book, or like someone I'm like a big fan of. In which case, again, very specifically looking for their book, so I'm probably just going to pick that up and walk out, or pick that up, buy it, and walk out. I'm not going to steal anything, but so I understand the idea of being very choosy with what you read and what you buy and stuff. And I think when you get into the webtoon kind of aspect of things, the choosiness it makes very little sense to me. Like, it takes nothing, it costs nothing to subscribe. So if you like a thing, subscribe, especially if you've like read multiple chapters. Just give them a sub. I don't really see why not. It costs you nothing. If you like, as in you enjoy a piece of work, give them a like. Likes cost nothing, and it helps. It really does. Um, if it helps nothing else, then to just make an artist feel like they're not wasting their time. Because let me tell you something. It's a big investment. It's a lot of time, and I don't want to get off on another tangent, but that's kind of what it really boils down to. I mean, you want to make money, that's cool and all, but before you do anything, you're just investing time and effort. And we don't have, all the time in the world here. And this is time I could be working on another project, or time I could be running errands or hanging out with my kid, or whatever you want to say. I mean, well, my kid's at school now, so it's not like that, but you know, you know what I'm trying to say. So yeah, like if you like something, hit that heart, make them feel good. It helps their numbers. That way, more people see their stuff. I mean, it costs nothing. But getting back to, I guess what I'm feeling today is just this. I'm really struggling with this feeling of, am I wasting my time with this obscurity or whatever you want to say? Because like, I have I have a lot of projects in my rearview mirror that are, how would you say it? Like, they're not done. They're unfinished. They should have been finished. They're too close to being finished to not be finished. Like, there are some of these are like, I put a stupid amount of effort and time into what I'm doing, into the work, to just walk away from it. But that was years ago, and comics was really burning me out back then. And so, you know, I took a break. I actually spent about 5 years not working on comics, and I tried to convince myself that I was done with it, that I didn't want it anymore. And that was, well, to be fair, I mean, that's something I felt that way. I really did, because it felt like, I don't know, it's weird because I'm going to say all this and you don't have any backstory because you don't know who I am. But it felt like it was a road that I was on, and it was a road that I was walking on specifically because it was the road I was on. Like, I no longer knew why I wanted to reach my destination, or even what my destination was or looked like. And so I kept walking because I felt like I had gone too far to turn back. I had devoted too much of my time in my life to this pursuit. And so, you know, um, And so I just kept going, and then I had a kid, and there were other factors that also led to it. There was a script issue where the book I was working on, the script was running late, and the kid was coming any damn the kid was due. My son was due in 3 months, and I was telling the guy who was writing, I was like, look, man, I really need you to get this script to me before this amount of time, because after my kid's born, there's no way I'm going to be able to work on the book, and I really, we just need to get this third chapter done and get this last book done, and then we'll be good. But uh, you know, he was dealing with stuff too, and so the script never came on time, and I had to stop working on it. And then as a result, I got this sort of taste of how burnt out I was, and so when it came time to come back to it, it was the last thing I could ever see myself. I couldn't bring myself to come back to it. I was already getting tired and burned out and everything because of you know other issues with like the the team that was working. I feel like I'm going to throw someone on the bus, and I don't want to because they're great guys, and I have nothing but respect. But when you're an indie creator or publisher or whatever, it's hard to devote yourself in a way that it wouldn't be if this was your 9 to 5. Like if this was your 9 to 5 and you were getting paid for it, you could easily go, yeah, I can sacrifice this thing to make sure this other thing gets done. And that's as much as you hear, uh, you know, seasoned pro comic artists talk about how hard things can be. The one thing that they have that indie guys don't have is time. It's really hard to make a monthly book, I know, and I'm sure I've never ever been able to do it, but I've also never ever been able to put an actual full 8 hours. I've never been able to make comics my full time thing. It was always something I had to juggle with other things. So, could I draw a book a month? I actually don't know because I've never had the opportunity to test. Even now, I don't have a job, and so on my days where I'm not at work, because I don't have a job because I have to take my son to therapy every day, and I have to bring him to and from school. Like my job is literally my son now. When he's after he's done with school, I have to kind of chauffeur him around to various places, and it's been like that for a couple of years. So I get a few hours in the morning, and I get a few hours in the afternoon, and then I get whatever time I can put to it at night. And it is really hard to devote yourself in a way like a full time. It becomes you're putting in a full time you're putting in full time hours without being able to to truly what do you say? How do you say it? Like devote yourself in the way you would with a full time job. You can't just I can't go, here's like a full 8 hour day in the office. It's literally like 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and then whatever I can do at night. So it's never I've never ever been able to devote myself, because even before my son was born, I was working in grocery stores and other things. So it was always just stealing time to draw. And I think after over a decade of doing that, I was just burned out when it came time for my son to come and be part of to be born. So, um, yeah, long story short, I quit drawing comics, and I thought I was done, and I wanted to be done. And I went and I worked at other places. I quit my job at Publix during the pandemic because fuck that. And about a year, and I ended up having to stay home with my son for that too. So after the pandemic was over, it was time for us all to go back to work, and I was able to find a job at a sign shop laying vinyl, and I loved it. It was great. It was one of the coolest jobs I've ever had. My son was 2.5, almost 3 years old at the time, so he was in daycare. So I was able to just go to work, drop my son off at daycare, go to work, do this awesome job that I loved, and then come home. And since I didn't want to draw comics anymore, at the end of the night, I would just play games and I would watch movies and I'd do whatever I wanted to do because I was working full time, and I was, the bills were getting paid. So I was just like, whatever, I'm going to play games. That's fine. Whatever. I don't need to do anything else. My wife was cool with it. So that was my life. And then, slowly but surely, started to feel like drawing again. And slowly but surely, stories started popping into my head. And, eventually I wanted to work on comics again. Like, that old itch came back, and I was kind of not happy about it. But I embraced it because it's who I am. I spoke to my wife about it. She's like, yeah, sure, I get it. She didn't care. She's like, you're doing your thing. So at night I would start drawing again, and I would work on books and things like that, and it was great. I was there again. I was doing a job I liked during the day, and I was drawing comics at night. And it wasn't like this crazy devotion where I was burning the candle at both ends and in the middle, like I was before. It was just like, hey, you got the job you like, and you can, draw at night, and that's cool. And then my son got diagnosed with autism. He's light on the spectrum. He's not like, he's not way down there. He's got some social issues, but otherwise he's, functioning, high functioning, normal kid, normal quote, air quotes, normal kid. And so he so I'm trying to say, sorry, I keep saying a lot, and I'm sure this is really compelling audio, but he would, since he got diagnosed with autism, we had to take him out of we had trouble with daycares, and so he ended up going. We ended up getting him enrolled in ABA therapy, which is something he needs, something he's doing that has done him incredible amounts of progress. It's really helped him, and that's great. The thing that happened was because he had to do that almost daily, and since the therapy office was about 30 minutes north of where we lived, and the sign shop I was working at was about 45 minutes south of where we lived. I loved the job, but I was doing a hell of a commute every day to, you know, uh, to go to work and pick my son up in the afternoons and come back home and things like that. So then, and I was more than willing to do that. I was great with that. I loved doing what I was doing, and I loved the people I was working with. And if it was all closer, I'd still be working at that sign shop. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. I loved it. So he had to go to this new therapy every day, which meant that the commute was going to double, and the commute was already almost unsustainable. So I had to quit my job and take on taking him to school, or taking him to therapy every day. So um, that is, and that's kind of still my existence, is I'm the one carting him around every day, and I don't mind that at all. That's fine, because I had to quit my job, and because his schedule is so demanding, I haven't been able to get another one. So my life is driving him around, and when I'm not doing that, I'm drawing comics, and my wife is perfectly fine with that. And I'm cool with that because it's kind of the closest thing I've ever had to being able to devote myself to a book or to drawing comics. And so we come to now, and I am, you know, elbow deep in this book called A Thousand Hells that is has deals with deep religious themes, and it is, like I said, it's more of a fantasy drama than it is a fantasy action, and it's not always the funnest book to draw, and I'm sure it's not always the funnest book to read. So, it doesn't have a lot of traffic. And that could just be that I am getting lost in the ocean that is the internet. And that's fine. Maybe if the right people see it, they'll fall in love with it, and one can hope. But as a result, I'm living in obscurity right now, and I'm having trouble with my platforms actually putting my work up, which is really annoying. And so, I'm dealing with this idea of I'm not going to quit on this book. I put too much time into it. And I also feel like I can't have another I can't have another failure. I've I've got too many unfinished projects in my rear view and not enough finished ones. So, I'm yeah, I'm determined to finish this book. And if nobody likes it, that's what it is. The next one I'm going to try to be a lot more fun about. This is more of a therapy kind of story, I I truly don't I believe as a writer, as storytellers, that we don't have well, I don't say we don't have a choice, but I think in a lot of ways the story comes to you, and you don't really have a choice in the stories that you can tell, in the sense that, yeah, I mean, certain people can just make up any story about anything. Hey, I want to draw a story about a dragon, and then they just come up with a story about a dragon, and that's fine. Some people are cool like that. I'm more of a, I'm more of the, this story came to me in a dream, or this story was uh, inspired by a thing, and something happened, and all of a sudden there's a story in my head, and this is the story that came to me. Because I'm not a writer first. I put a lot of effort into being able to write. I've read every freaking book on writing, screenwriting, and storytelling, and I'm a voracious consumer of all kind of video and projects that are all about storytelling and literary analysis and things like that. I am obsessed with that stuff. So I've put the hours in to understand what makes story tick, and whether I can do it or not is to be determined. But it's not for lack of trying. But anyway, like I said, the story came to me, and it's a story that came to me so easily that it felt like it had to be written, and it's personal. It's based on, not on, I mean, there's some aspects of it that are kind of based on my life, in the sense that it was inspired by a video that I saw of someone saying something that really hit me where I live, because of the nature of my son. And so there was this sort of compulsion to tell this story. This isn't the fun, sexy kind of action romp that you know uh, some people would do. I would love to be like Daniel Warren Johnson, just being like, what, I want to draw a bunch of wrestlers being awesome, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a book about wrestlers, and and he just and finds a way to give it some real heart, and that's cool. That's not the story that came to me. story that came to me is about a father who is struggling with his faith, and his son exhibits magical powers, and he happens to be in a religion that is genocidally against any and all magical beings. So when his son displays magical powers, everyone in his village turns on him, and they have to go on the run. And that's the story. And the once they get into the the plot of the thing, where they're running for their lives and they're trying to escape, it gets a little more fun, it gets a little more actiony, but the setup is, setup's not as fun or not as cool. It's a lot of, these are the characters, and this is the world, and this is the darkness that these people have to deal with. And so that's not as cool as being able to draw you know awesome powerbomb pictures or whatever. So it's a little harder to get people to be like instantly invested. So that's the thing that I struggle with is nobody's reading this book, and that's cool. That's webcomics. That's what we do. We work in obscurity until someday people find our stuff and they pick it up and they read it and they either like it or they don't. I've done this before. Um, my wife and I did a webcomic for several years before my son was born, and it took a lot of time for viewers to come to us. The market, the webcomic, the ocean was smaller then, so that is a factor. So it's I get that. That's part of the game. I understand. It's just a hard game to play sometimes, and sitting here just drawing and listening to music in a room by myself, and so these thoughts came to me, and I had to get them out. And so the idea that I guess the main idea that I wanted to share is this idea of when you've come down a path, you feel like you're at the point of no return, in the sense that you've come too far to turn back, and got to get it done. So here I am. I'm working on a story that nobody seems to like, that is deeply personal to me, and so it's the thing I deal with. It's the thing a lot of artists deal with. Anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts. So whether I do anything with this audio or not, I guess we'll see. Maybe I'll upload it to YouTube with some video of me drawing. All right, all the best. Take care.